Hey listener, we're jumping into The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood today, starring the super hot, super smart, Adam Driver lookalike, Dr. Adam Carlsen, and the super smart, super hot, future cancer curer, and almost doctor, Olive Smith. These two nerds are about to fake date their way to their happily ever after. Rachel is going to warn you that even if you do fall in love, PhD programs are still pretty much the seventh circle of hell. And Allison will give you a play-by-play from the fake dating game plan. Enjoy the show, and remember, this is just part one.
Okay, so today we are doing The Love Hypothesis. This book is about a biology PhD student, Olive, dating a professor in her department, Adam. And as a current PhD student, I can say that throughout this book, I was ready to have like cringe moments of like, you know, this is nothing like what it's like to be in academia. However, by like a tenth of the way in, I was like, you know what? I can say for sure that this book was either meticulously researched or written by someone who has actually experienced a PhD program, which I believe is the case.
Yeah.
There are so many accurate details right down to the program picnics and forcing those around you to attend some sort of mass flu vaccination event, which makes me wonder, like, are academics somehow more likely than the average person to have a fear of needles? So I don't know. I've never encountered so many people averse to getting the flu vaccine in one place.
Most people don't get the flu vaccine, Rachel.
Yeah, well,
our
that's
family's
stupid.
weird. It's weird that we make a yearly competition over who can get their flu vaccine the fastest. We're out of the ordinary.
I had the flu once in second grade, and I had to miss 2 weeks of school. And I remember
flu?
Yeah, I remember staring sadly out the back door for 2 weeks and every day asking mom, like, can I go back to school today? And him being like, no, sorry, you still have a fever, or you have to wait like a certain number of days after you don't have a fever. Yeah. So I'm not doing that again. No, thank you.
I don't think I ever had the flu. I never missed school for being sick.
Yeah, that was
I
like
instead was the super fucking gross girl walking around with a bag full of tissues and just blowing my nose at my desk as the tissue pile climbed higher. I really should have stayed home, but yeah.
So speaking of school and this book, does the idea of dating a professor skeeve me out kind of a lot? Yes. Is it unheard of? No. Am I able to suspend my achiness feeling for this very hot book that I really enjoyed? 100% yes. However, I just feel like my amygdala still can't separate this setup from like the fight or flight response triggered by like the idea of like, you know, teacher student dating in like K through 12 or even college. Like that's just so like, oh my God, like I can't.
All right.
Like, it's
well,
just so,
K through
like,
12
gross.
is just illegal.
I know.
Illegal.
But even college, it feels very inappropriate. And I get like, okay, in this book, there's not even that big of an age gap. There's no like power dynamic. Like he's not like her professor. But I still have like that gut reaction of like, oh my gosh, this is like. But by the second read through, I'd gotten over it. But
I did call HR.
Yeah. No, but it's so weird because like. So I'm still in my PhD program, but like theoretically I could be a professor like next year. And there's like new professors in my department that are like in their late 20s, you know? So it's like really, they're like younger than some of the students. So it's like, I know rationally when I think about it, I'm like, this is not that weird as long as there's no like power dynamic, like direct, you know, like any kind of supervisory role or anything. However, something in my little like rabbit brain still can't like fully comprehend. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Lizard brain is putting on its running shoes and it's like taking a lap. Okay. So listener, just to give some context, I've been building Rachel up with the news about this this book, the background of this book, for a while now. But unfortunately, based on your response to a question I asked you 2 days ago, I don't think that you're going to be as blown away by it as I hoped you would be, but I still think it's important to state. So this book was originally a Star Wars fan fiction.
Wait.
Specifically Kylo Ren and Rey from the new trilogy. This was a Reylo fanfic. Adam is Adam Driver. I pictured Adam Driver this whole book. Olive is Daisy Ridley. Look at the cover, Rachel. The cover, they look like they're Star Wars characters. And listen, as a former fan fiction writer, I am all for fan fiction writers who do that shit for free, turning their book into original fiction and making a killing off of it. Like hats off to Ali Hazelwood. I just think it's fucking hilarious that like one of the rom-coms of the year was a fucking Raylo fanfic.
Okay, that is not where I thought you were going with that at all. I thought you were about to tell me that this was like a true life like diary entry. Like this happened to either her or like a close friend when she was
I don't know, maybe. Like she's in academia, so that could have happened.
I do remember the Star Wars question, but I do not. I also don't know that much about Star Wars.
I know you haven't seen any of the new movies, so that's why I was like, oh, she's not going to be as
I have been to the Hollywood Studios part of the park, though. Anyway, that was pretty cool.
And as we were finishing up the book today and taking our walk, I was mentally figuring out who all the other characters are. So listeners who are familiar with the new Star Wars trilogy, my theory is that Adam obviously is Adam Driver, who plays Kylo Ren. Olive is Rey. Malcolm is Finn. Holden is Poe, who is also played by a Latino actor. And Malcolm is black in the book, and so is Finn in the movie. I don't know who the fuck An is. I think she could be Leia, but there like aren't any women in in the new Star Wars trilogy. So like I don't know who the fuck she's supposed to be. And who else? Oh no, Professor Aishigul is Leia. I just figured that out.
Who's Tom?
And then Tom is I figured his name. He's the ginger one. He's played by Domhnall Gleeson. Why do I know like the actor's weird name, but I fucking forget? Hux. It's like General Huxaby or something. Hux, I think.
General Hux. Yep.
Yeah. That's who he is, General Hux. And then the shitty advisor, Adam's shitty advisor in school is Emperor Snoke / possibly Palpatine. I didn't see the third movie in like the new trilogy, but I'm aware that Palpatine comes back to life. So he's either Snoke or Palpatine.
Wow. Talk about writing what you know. Like she was just like, well, I know a lot about Star Wars. I know a lot about biology academia. And you know what? It worked great. Like it's a masterwork, really.
No, it's fabulous. I'm very pro that. And I'm very glad that we have some more fan fiction to original fiction representation that's not 50 Shades of Grey, you know?
Yeah,
like because as much as I thoroughly enjoyed 50 Shades of Grey, it is horrible, just all around horrible. And so I'm glad we have like a good book that made the job.
What about that Angel book? I
don't think that was supposed to be fan fiction, Rachel.
I thought it was also like originally not Twilight, but like some other.
You're talking about Shadowhunters.
Yeah.
That was
Hermione.
Yes, but I remember there also was some sort of incest component to Cassandra Clare's original thing. Like it was like Ginny and Ron were together in some way.
Fuck.
Which is all, I mean, listen, incest also makes its way into the original Shadowhunters trilogy as well.
Yikes.
Just in case you're not aware. There's incest there too. So yeah, I'm glad we have a healthy entertaining book that can now be the poster child for fan fiction to original fiction.
How do you know that there aren't like way more like that they just no one's picked it up yet? I think it's up to us.
I'm sure there are.
Sleuth them out.
I'm sure there are.
Make the connections. Find out who these authors are fans of and what these authors are fans of and what it could have been.
Well, I'm pretty sure she's said it. Like I'm pretty sure
that's what I'm saying.
Hazelwood is not hiding.
I'm saying how many do you know other ones that are out there where they haven't said it? Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I would love to know.
I think it's up to us.
To what?
This is our new mission. Sleuth it out.
I'm not. Listen, if it's based off of Harry Potter fan fiction, I can probably help you out. But otherwise, like, no dice, unfortunately.
All right. So, Olive. We start with like a little prequel situation, right? I don't know. How did you feel about that? I feel like it was not used as much as I would have expected. And I'll leave it up to you to like illuminate the Star Wars parallels. But Olive in the first chapter or whatever it's called.
I don't think there's any I don't think
there's any Star Wars parallel. What is it called? Not the prequel, the prologue. In the prologue. Or maybe it's the first chapter. She's a visiting student to Stanford's PhD program. She just had an interview. And naturally, this is like very triggering for me because she's gotten herself into a sticky situation because she decided to keep wearing expired contacts, and now her eyes are burning, so she like has to find the first bathroom. But I constantly go back and forth on this because on the one hand, I think that all of this is like a hoax orchestrated by the contacts lobby. I feel like there's no reason you should need a new prescription every time you want to get contacts. I feel like that's all just like, and I feel like the justification is that it like makes sure that people are wearing like unexpired contacts that are like the right thing for their eyes. But I feel like it just makes it so much more expensive. And so it actually just makes people like not like change their contacts as much because they have to go get a new prescription every time. Right?
You have to get a new prescription. They can't give you like 3 refills.
You need it every year.
Oh, every year.
Yeah. Which is fucking
it's definitely the contacts lobby.
Right. But on the other hand, apparently expired contacts, like I don't know what the truth is. Like how quickly, like apparently the seal, like especially if they're like the 1-a-days, I guess, the seal like degrades, kind of like how with canning with the jars, like over time, like it will let stuff in. So like there can be like bacteria in there and stuff, and you can actually like go blind, like worst case scenario. I just wish I knew how like dangerous that is.
In this specific situation with Olive, her contacts are several years expired. So I think we can safely assume that whatever threshold there is for actual contact expiring, Olive has met it and surpassed it. Because she's currently sitting in Adam's bathroom crying because her eyes are burning.
Well, she's not crying because she's sad. Her eyes are like involuntarily burning. But also, I'm also jealous of her that she's able to wear several year expired contacts because my fucking prescription keeps changing every so often. So I have this, like, I don't even wear contacts that often. So I'll just like buy like a bunch of them at once so that in the hopes that like my prescription will stay the same and I won't have to get a new prescription next year and just keep using those contacts. But then my eyes fucking change and I have just a bunch of like old wrong contacts. So if anyone knows of like a good black market, I'm sort of kidding, sort of not. I got quite the buildup.
Rachel she's been planning to get LASIK for like the past 5 years now.
My eyes keep
like
changing.
6 years, but she's not allowed to get
it's a
LASIK
good thing I didn't listen to the doctor. They were like originally like, oh, you can do it when you're 21, and like that's just not true. Your eyes on average don't stop changing until you're like 25, and I'm definitely a late bloomer in that department.
Okay.
So
Olive is in the bathroom. She's there at Stanford for her PhD interview, and Adam walks in and he's like, "What are you doing in my bathroom?" Well, it's like very obvious it's Adam. Olive doesn't know it's Adam because she can't see because her eyes are running. But reader, like you're like, okay, well, this is obviously Adam. Like deep voice, tall, dark haired man, obviously Adam. And he's like, "What are you doing in my bathroom?" And she's like, "Oh, is this your bathroom?" And he's like, "Yeah, for my lab." And he just immediately, one of my favorite things about Adam is that he is like, I don't know whether I'm using this term right, but it just feels spiritually right. He very much is like a stern brunch daddy, which is an actual phrase. I don't know whether I'm making it up, and I don't know whether I'm applying it correctly or whether it only applies to like middle-aged daddies. But he's a stern brunch daddy specifically because he's always constantly trying to make Olive take care of herself. So in this respect, he's like, "Why the fuck are you wearing expired contacts, random girl that I've just met?" And like later on, he's like, "Don't ride on the road where there are no bike lanes." And then also he's like, "Eat more vegetables." And like he's constantly just like, "God, take care of yourself. Like stop this." And that's one of my favorite tropes, like the exasperated man constantly trying to make like the messy girl take care of herself.
I think you are using it correctly just based on a quick Google search from Wikipedia. Stern brunch daddy, dominating personality, exhibiting firm kindness in public, but unleashes pure animal instincts sexually. Masculine of classy in the streets, freak in the sheets.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would agree. Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Same.
So Adam is a stern brunch daddy. I just feel like I've only ever seen it specifically in the context of like silver foxed bearded men. But I think Adam counts as well because I think Adam could grow a beard if he wanted to.
Oh, for sure. We're never told he doesn't have a beard. You know what I mean? Like, it's never explicitly.
Rachel, he's Kylo Ren. Does Kylo Ren have a beard? No.
I have no idea.
Ergo, Rachel, I'm telling you.
I know, I believe you. I just
that I pictured Adam Driver.
Yeah.
Never once did I picture anything besides Adam Driver this entire book.
Oh, well, I'm picturing Josh from The Hating Game this entire time. I'm picturing old school Superman for a throwback to our first episode.
Oh my God. I'm picturing Adam Driver. And then, but I didn't picture Daisy Ridley for Olive. I just pictured the cartoon girl on the cover.
Yeah, same.
Okay, just a summary of things we learned in this conversation is that Olive is Canadian. That doesn't really become relevant, but whatever.
So that she doesn't want to go back to the land where they eat moose hearts, in her words.
Yeah. And I really hope Ali Hazelwood is Canadian because otherwise, like, what a weird shot to take in Canada. Like, it's just a shot across the bow.
She's from Italy.
Well, maybe her like mom is Canadian. I don't know.
Lived in Germany.
Ali Hazelwood lives in Germany right now, so she's like an international gal. And her name is Ali Hazelwood, which feels like a very American/Canadian name. I don't know. Okay. Anyway, we also learned that Olive's mom is dead. We don't learn in this conversation that she died from cancer, but she died from pancreatic cancer. So trigger warning for the rest of this book if that's something that is going to be triggering for you, because I know there was discussion about that on book Twitter. Yes, Rachel, what did you learn about Ali Hazelwood?
Moose meat is completely carb free, and apparently moose heart tastes best when cut thinly and cooked on a barbecue like a slice of steak. Everybody loves it. It's basically like liver.
Like liver?
Also more than 300 milligrams of potassium per serving.
That is the two most contradictory sentences I've ever heard.
God.
Everybody loves it. It tastes like liver.
It looks like yellow meatloaf. Yeah, I know.
That doesn't make any sense. Listen, I can imagine like thinly sliced heart.
Oh, like, look, I'm done. I'm sorry. I brought this up. I can't.
You brought this up.
Leave the moose alone.
As an aside, we'll leave the moose alone. But in 8th grade German, our teacher brought in like German delicacies, one of which is cow tongue. And it was just like very, very thinly sliced cow tongue. And I ate meat at the time and I tried it. And you know what? It was pretty good. I wouldn't have it again, but I was like, nice.
Leave the cows alone. At least moose kill people. When has a cow ever killed anyone? I'm sure they kill tons of people every year. But
moose only kill people when you're on their turf.
Sure, their turf being the road.
Excuse me, are we not a country of like stand your ground laws in which like you're allowed to kill people when they're on your turf? You built a road through their land and now you're mad that they're crossing it?
Where's the cow turf then? It's the same logic for cows, because I bet you no cow is coming into your house and stampeding you. You know what I mean? Like,
I just had a vision of like waking up in the middle of the night to like snorting like like the cow just standing over me.
That reminds me of, oh my God, do you remember this commercial? I don't remember if it was on some like VHS tape we had as a kid. I just remember it's ingrained in my memory with like such vividness. It was this movie and it's about like talking cows or something, right? And there's a scene where like the neighborhood boys are like being little dickheads and they go into the field and tip the cows and they're like, that's called cow tipping. And then it cuts to a scene where the cows come into the boy's bed and tip him over and are like, that's called boy tipping. So yeah, that's an image that interests you.
Like it's back at the barnyard.
Back at the barnyard.
It's back at the barnyard.
I feel like it was like a chicken run with cows. That was like the idea, kind of, but not stop motion.
No. It was like over the hedge. That was the vibe.
Yeah.
Animals making a mess.
Yeah. All right. So Olive's from Canada, where they allegedly eat meese.
But the important thing we get from this conversation is that Olive is like, I don't know whether I want to go into academia, which like fair. It's frankly, I know you're in academia, Rachel, but it seems miserable for me personally.
It's a scam.
And then Adam is like, well, why do you want to go? And she gives him some canned answer. And then he's like, yeah, but why do you really want to go? And she's like, I have a question to be answered. And that question is how to detect pancreatic cancer early so that you can save people's lives, which is a very noble question, I have to say.
Yeah, she's like, I don't trust anyone else to find the answer. For the record, her canned answer is something like, oh, I want to go because it'll give me transferable skills, which if you actually do want to get into a PhD program, don't ever say that. The only right answer is like, because I want to be an academic and live in academia forever. Like, they do not want to hear transferable skills. They do not want to hear, I want to get any other job. Like, no. Anyway, her answer to Adam is good. And then he just like looks at her and he's like, all right, got to get back to my lab. Right. And she's like,
yeah. And she's like, wow, that was so inspiring.
She's like, is my answer good? And he's like,
it's the best one.
Yes. And then after that,
inspires her.
Yeah.
But the whole conversation takes place with like her eyes closed, which is just very like, I can't imagine this.
Well, she can't see, she's taken her contacts out and her eyes are like burning and streaming, you know, like she's just
I know, but it's just funny. Like the whole time is with her eye closed.
The whole time she's also thinking that he must be a grad student, right? Because she's like, oh, how long have you been here? And he's like 6 years. And she's like, oh, when are you graduating? And he's like, and she's like, oh, I shouldn't have asked you that, whatever. And she just like thinks he's a grad student. And she's like, no one else could be that like stuck up or something. However, can I just say that I did the math on this? Okay, here's what doesn't make sense to me. Most PhD programs, I would say in general, run you like 5 to 6 years, right? And I don't know, I guess in the sciences, it's more common to have to get a master's before. But like for my program, you kind of just like get your master's along the way, like after 2 years, you know? However, in this beginning scene, Adam is 31 because the rest of the book is 3 years later and he's 34. If he's already been at Stanford for 6 years at that point, that means that he graduated his program at 25, which just makes no fucking sense unless he was like a child prodigy and went to college super early. Because in this world, it seems like you have to get your master's, which is like 2 years, right? Olive is 23 and has just gotten her master's. And she presumably graduated college around 21. And then they're talking about like people being there in their 7th year as like a normal thing. So that's like 9 fucking years, right? Like, I don't know. I don't know. So Adam's just like a prodigy. Adam's a genius.
I mean, that's completely in line.
Like either he got his PhD in like 4 years or less, or no. I mean, if the master's is required, that's like 2 years or less, which is just
the
like
master's
insane.
Isn't required.
Or he graduated college when he was like very young. So yeah.
I believe it.
She thinks he's a student. She accepts her offer to Stanford.
3 years later, Olive is in a dark hallway on a Saturday night, and her horrible friend On is walking down the hallway. And let's talk about On and how I want this to be an anti-On podcast. Because I was very gung-ho the first time I read this book. I was like, Olive needs to ditch On immediately. I think I've now been desensitized upon this second reading, and I don't hate On as much as I did before. But reader, On does get called out on her bullshit by the end of the book. But if that hadn't happened, I had written an entire Goodreads review. Like I'd written a review in my notes app that was just entirely composed of, I hate On. She sucks so much. She's a horrible friend, and she like takes away all of Olive's agency. And then On gets called out and apologizes. So I just like furiously deleted it. And I was like, fine, like I won't go on a rant about this. But I hate.
So basically, okay, On, things to know about her. She's Vietnamese American. Her and Olive met and became friends because they're like the only 2 girls in their program. And they've been like, basically, I guess Olive like hasn't had a lot of close friends in her life. Like she talks about everyone else's acquaintances, but she's like, On is my homegirl. Like she's like the first really close, like, you know, bare our souls to each other. She's like best friend. She's
the Christina Yang to Olive's Meredith Grey.
Yes. And they do everything together. They like hang out, whatever. On is really involved in like women in STEM and like specifically BIPOC women in STEM, like organizing and groups. And she's like,
which is great. I am very on board with that part of On.
Yeah. So she also like brings Olive home with her on holidays and like really sweet, whatever. However, right now, so Olive has recently been dating this guy named Jeremy, who is Irish, but other than that, doesn't really seem to have much going for him.
Yeah. Jeremy just seems like such like just like a white milquetoast kind of man, except for the fact that he has an Irish accent and he's a ginger. So I completely understand why these 2 hot women like had a crush on him at some point. Cause like, yeah, I mean, if you're fucking straight and some guy with an Irish accent and like flaming red hair waltzes in, like your panties are going to drop to the floor. I don't make the fucking rules. If you're attracted to men, that's how it works. And you're American. If you're in Ireland, obviously, like, everyone has Irish accents. But if you're an American,
Olive was dating Jeremy. She wasn't like that into him, but whatever. They were casually dating. And then they all go bowling together, and Jeremy sees An for the first time. And Olive is like, yeah, he's really into her. Like, I can totally tell. And I can, like, even though An won't admit it and, like, isn't openly acting like she's into him, like, I can tell that she, like, also is interested in him. And so Olive, like, Jeremy breaks up with Olive, or they break up. And then Jeremy asks An out, but she's like, no, I can't go out with you, like, girl code, whatever. And even though Olive tells her, like, repeatedly, it's totally cool, I'm not that into him, An still won't go out with him. So Olive, who, and we have, like, a little bit of, like, she has been alone for a long time, and she's like, this is my, like, finally I have friends and, like, somewhere to go on the holidays. I don't want to, like, mess that up. She's, like, very, I guess, I don't know what I would call it, like, just, like, misguided people, please. I don't know. She comes up with this, like, plan.
She has a lot of trauma. Her mom died when she was, like, 14. She was in foster care for 2 years. Like, she doesn't have any additional family. Her dad's has never been in the picture. Like, I get it. Like, she had trauma very young. And so she, like, really holds on tight to, like, the friends that she has.
Yeah. And she wants An to be happy. So she lies to An and tells her that she's going on a date. Okay. So that An will, like, feel free. She'll be like, well, okay, Olive's moved on. I can finally believe her. And feel free to go on a date with Jeremy.
Yeah, and I want to emphasize, this is not the part of An that really, like, set me off. Because, like, I respect An for, like, respecting the girl code. I do think that if someone tells you multiple times, I'm fine with this, go ahead and date this guy, then you should believe them. I'm a very big fan of, like, being straight with people and then other people, like, assuming you're being straight with them and believing you. Like, but I recognize that a lot of people aren't like that. And so I do respect An for wanting to put her friend's feelings above her own interests. This is not the part that sets me off.
Sure.
Literally everything that An does, every single time we see her after this point, I am like, An, get out of here. Transfer schools. Get out of Olive life.
Well, maybe, yeah, An is, like, potentially, like, not wanting Olive to be unhappy at all. However, this plan of Olive's backfires because since she doesn't actually have a date, she naturally goes and hangs out at the lab on Saturday night and, like, runs some experiments. But this backfires when she like goes out for a bathroom break or something, and who does she see waltzing down the hallway but An? And she's like, shit, like, she's gonna know I lied, even though couldn't she just say, like, oh, like, my date ended? I don't know, whatever. So naturally, what does she do except turn and see, like, this random man walking down the hallway, run up to him, quickly whisper, can I kiss you? And without waiting for an answer, kiss him.
And guess who that man is? Like, none other than Adam Carlsen.
Yes.
The fake grad student since actually genius biology professor.
So when we opened up on the scene, it was already describing the kiss, and then we get filled in on what happened. And the kiss was described in terms which I've previously only really heard associated with, like, it's like the trigger words for, like, this is not the hero. It was like the kiss was pleasant enough, like, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, oh, I guess this, like, isn't the hero. But then it heats up and we find out that it was only, like, pleasant initially because it was, like, so random and, like, just
because then he, like, wraps his, like, big meaty hands that can span her waist around her in the classic romance hero way, and, like, they make out for real.
Yeah, and An is fooled, and then when Olive, like, pulls away, she sees that An is left.
Yes. And I do like that, you know, even though she doesn't, she does theoretically think that she heard Adam say yes when she asked him for consent. And so I do appreciate this attempt at consent.
It's attempted consent. It's also attempted gaslighting because when they pull away, he's like,
it's great.
Yeah, he's like, did you just kiss me? And she's like, I see my opportunity. No. And then he's like, wait a second. And then she's like, nope. And he's like, can you explain this? And she's like, I'm really sorry, but it's none of your business.
And I'm like, go big or go home, Olive. Like,
yeah. And then he pulls out, he's like, all right, I'll just go home and start writing my Title IX complete. And she's like, okay, great, thanks. And she's like, shit. Like,
so, and she gets a hold. She's like, oh no, I just kissed not just anyone, but Professor Adam Carlsen, the biggest dick in the department. He makes his students cry / throw up / quit the program. And he's mean to everybody. And I'm sitting here like, I mean, I get this is like a grumpy sunshine, but like that seems really abusive.
It does. It does. And we get his perspective, but honestly, I was expecting a little bit more of like an explanation there. Like I was expecting him to have like an equal, like something akin to her like tragic story and why she really cares about her science. Him to be like, yeah, I just like care so much about the answers that I don't want to risk having like any slapshod, like not up to par science. And that's why I'm so harsh. But we didn't get that.
He doesn't have a tragic backstory, but he is. I mean, listen, I think that with Adam, yeah, his explanation is yeah, basically like I like want to produce good scientists. Like when I criticize people, I criticize their work. He's also at one point like I don't want people to base their self-worth in their work. Which is a good, all of those, yeah, good things. Like, yes, you should be giving people constructive criticism. It just seems like he is incapable of giving constructive criticism without
he's
seeming like an asshole.
Yeah, he's more like, well, at least I don't explicitly make it about them instead of like, I try to reinforce that it's not about them explicitly. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So she's extra freaked out because she's like, oh no, I just kissed a known dick against his will.
And then she apologizes when he says the Title IX thing. She's like, shit, like I really did just like, you know, sexually assault him. Like if he wasn't into it, which we find out he's definitely into it, she could be in some hot water here. But yeah.
Yes. And I'm this whole time thinking about, I mean, I guess it has been 3 years, but this whole book, there was just this little voice in the back of my mind being like, you, like that conversation in the bathroom was so impactful for you. How do you not recognize this man's voice? How do you not recognize his voice?
I'm always more suspicious. It just makes less sense to me when people in like books and movies have only heard a voice once and somehow recognize it, because the human memory is just so infallible.
But they had a long conversation that she like runs over in her mind over again.
But it was also like a stressful situation, and the more stressful, like the more like, I don't know, like it's like how like eyewitnesses to crimes are like, you would think like, oh, this is like really like something that you'd remember because it's so like traumatic, but no. Any kind of traumaticness makes your memory worse, you know?
To be fair, you showed us that video. So Rachel showed us a video once that was like, you watch a crime happen and then they show you a lineup and it's like, pick the criminal out of the lineup. And it was a trick question because I remember looking at the lineup and being like, none of these guys looks like the criminal, but like, I guess one of them has to be. Otherwise, why would they be asking me this question?
Well, that's the point.
And that, but it was a like controlled experiment. If this was
that's what it's
actual,
like.
Anyway, none of them was the criminal, and I just guessed one, and Rachel was like, ha, the human memory is infallible.
Okay,
and I was like, well,
that was hardly a randomized control trial. There's plenty of other evidence besides just me showing you.
I believe
video.
you. I'm just calling you out on your duplicitousness. I'm just like, this is a call out post. Yeah. So Olive explains that she's trying to trick her friend on, and Adam rightfully thinks that's really stupid. He's like, why can't you just tell your friend the truth? Like, that's not what friendship is supposed to be like. And I'm like, you're right, Adam. The blame, however, is at On's feet, not Olive's.
It does give him plenty of time to cook up his fake dating scheme.
Oh, yes.
And a plausible motive for him to be
it. At this point, Adam is smelling the fake dating juices on the wind, and he is ready to slurp them the fuck up.
It's like a running thing throughout that like Adam allegedly has never seen a rom-com or like read a romance book, but that can't be true. Either that or he's just like hardwired.
He has the fake dating playbook memorized. Like he knows. Okay, so the only other important thing that happens in that scene is so Olive runs away. She's like, you should file the Title IX complaint, I guess. And then she runs away. She's a runner. She's a track star. And at the end of the chapter is like, Olive didn't even realize that like...
He's like, wait, Olive.
That he knew her name. And I'm like, he knows her name because he's in love with her.
Yeah, because she's constantly thinking like, oh, this apartment is so huge. Like there's so many faculty. I can't even count the mailboxes. There's no way he like recognizes me.
Yeah. Because she's never had a class with him. He's not on her like thesis committee. Like he doesn't interact with her. Like they work in different realms of biology. So she's like, no way he knows who I am. But I, of course, know who he is because he's a hotshot scientist.
Yeah. Okay, now, the next day, she's like, Olive's hanging out in the break room, and On comes up to her and is like, what the fuck? You're dating Adam Carlsen? Like, how could you not tell me? And Olive has to be like, oh, he's really nice. And like, I just think it's like, I don't know why. I guess An is suspicious, but I feel like An would be more suspicious and like ask for more details of like, how did you end up going on a date with this professor? Like, who
Well,
initiated it? Where did this come
she
from?
doesn't have time because
Yes.
our good boy Adam, who has allegedly never seen a rom-com in his life, rolls on up and puts his hand on Olive's back and is like, "Oh, hello, ladies." And he's like, of course I am her boyfriend. Why would you ever think otherwise?" And Anna's like, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god." And she leaves.
To
And then
go ask
Olive's
Jeremy
like,
out.
"Fuck Jeremy."
Wait,
Yeah.
aside, before Adam comes up, Olive is like, On, why don't you go ask Jeremy to that horror festival you want to go to this weekend so that I don't have to go with you and have nightmares for 6 months. And like, honestly, if that doesn't prove how good of a friend Olive is to go when you're someone who gets nightmares from horror movies, which I am, to like willingly go to a horror movie festival. Like,
Yeah. And frankly, conversely, if that doesn't show how shitty a friend An is, why would you continually ask your
yeah.
friend to go to this thing? They give like, yeah, as someone who like has seen all of like 2 horror movies in my life and both like still has fucking nightmares about both of them, like my friends know to
Yeah.
not ask me or to like not suggest a horror, like never.
Yeah.
On, why are you getting Olive to go with you to this horrible festival? There's like
Mhm.
marathon of horror movies. Come on,
Yeah.
On.
So An leaves and Adam and Olive are left, and Olive's like, "Thanks for saving my butt, dude." And he's like, I don't know, what does he even say? He's like, "You're welcome."
Yeah, something. Anyway, this all ends in them agreeing to fake date.
Isn't this later on when she comes to his office? No. They just like talk, right? And then she goes and gets some coffee and checks her emails. And this is when we find out her like scheme. So her advisor, Dr. Aishul Aslan, is planning to
Which,
retire. Or just yeah.
an aside, Aishul Aslan, I didn't even have to write down that name. I don't know why that name is so memorable, but it's just like, it feels like it could be the name of literally every physics professor in the United States.
Yeah.
Like, pick a physics professor, like, put them all in a room and ask them to raise their hands as a, whose name is Aishul Aslan. And I guarantee like 50% of them will raise their hand. Like, I don't know. It's just so viscerally like a
As
physics
someone
professor
who
name.
was a physics major, I can confirm. So Aishul Aslan is retiring earlier than planned because her husband's sick, and therefore that means she's like not as interested in getting like grant money, and the lab is like not that as well funded as it was, and so Olive needs to find another source of funding to finish her experiment.
No,
Her
she
like
needs another lab.
yeah, and therefore
Yeah.
she's looking for another lab to spend like the next academic year. So she's been contacting all these professors across the country, and now in this coffee house scene, we get a response from one of them, and it's from Tom Benton at Harvard, and he's like, he's like, your research sounds really interesting. I don't know why I'm giving you an Australian
Why
accent.
are you giving
I'm
him
not.
a
I'm not
sexy
going to slander
Australian
the. I'm not
accent?
going to slander the Australian people like that.
Yeah,
Your
come
your
on.
research sounds really interesting. I am coming to Harvard
No, no,
soon.
no, no. It's more like, "Hey, Olive, your
Yes,
research sounds
yes.
really interesting. I would love to have a chat with you. I'll be at Stanford next week to meet with a collaborator. Why don't we talk then?" XOXO, Tom Benton, aka Daddy's Boy.
No, it's Cheers, Tom Benton, which is another should have been a huge red flag, honestly. I don't know if anyone outside academia says that, but I
They
don't
do. Again, I've already told you, I have multiple people I email with on a regular
know.
basis who say cheers. Some of them are British, though, if that
Mhm.
helps.
So Olive is like elated at this. She's like, "Yes, I'm gonna get to like finish and cure pancreatic cancer." However, she notices also that she sees Jeremy sitting across the coffee shop, and he's like looking at her weird and giving her some side eye, and she like waves, and he quickly looks away, and she's like, "That's weird." And then she realizes that like other people are staring at her, and like Jeremy's friend comes up, and they start like whispering about her, and she's like, what the fuck?" And then she runs into Malcolm, her other best friend and roommate, and he's like, "I'm not talking to you." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm not talking to you. I heard you're dating Adam Carlsen, my sworn enemy," because Malcolm is one of those aforementioned students who have been brought to tears by Adam. And so
Yeah.
he has a huge grudge. And so Olive is like, wait, but how did you find out? And he's like, "Oh, An told Jeremy, and Jeremy told everyone."
So we got strike one against On, and we have more proof that Jeremy is nothing but a milquetoast Irish, like, white boy hidden behind an Irish accent. My God.
Snitch. So Olive is understandably freaking out. She's like, this is like really, I feel like that is really like, it's not something you want everyone to find out, especially if it's like not true.
Yeah,
It's
it proves, even if it is true, like, if I told my best friend that I was dating a professor, which isn't technically like not allowed in this situation because Adam and Olive don't work together, but like is still a very low-key scandalous thing to
yeah,
happen that's gonna like change how people view me.
for sure.
If I told my best friend that that was the case, and then she told some dickbag,
My
I mean,
ex-boyfriend,
they don't think he's a dickbag. She told someone else,
her
and then they
ex-boyfriend.
told our whole fucking program. Like, at this point, I'd be like, this is, I was fine with you dating Jeremy before, but now that he has so thoroughly betrayed me, absolutely not. Like, kick Jeremy to the fucking curb. No, he
Yeah.
can't be trusted. Like, I just can't understand. These are all intelligent people. They are in a STEM PhD program. And you're telling me neither On nor Jeremy has the ounce of common sense that like would be necessary to know not to spread a rumor about your friend dating a professor? Are you kidding me?
It seems like, no instruction manual needed on that one. So Olive understandably starts freaking out, and she's like, oh, I gotta go talk about this with Adam. And so she like packs up her shit, runs into Adam's lab, and naturally just like causes even more gossip by like interrupting all these grad students and demanding to speak with him. And as she's like coming to his office, like this undergrad girl walks out like crying, and she knocks on the door and walks in, and he's like, my office hours ended 5 minutes ago. Get the fuck out. And she's like, it's me. And he's like, it's you. Which like,
And he's like, my love?
yeah.
Oh, my queen? The love of my life?
Like, why are you constantly making people cry? Also, if it's a fucking undergrad, there's no need for that. That's just being a total, you can't even hide behind the excuse of like, I need to produce good science. Because no undergrad is producing science.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Anyway, Olive tells him about the fake dating, and outside, like exteriorly.
No, Olive is like panicking, and she's like, people are saying this about us. Like, this is terrible. We need to like tell them that we broke up. We can tell them that I broke up with you. And he's like, oh, thanks. And she's like, or that you broke up with me. And he's like, as if they believe that. And she's like, what does that mean? Huh. And she's like, why is he so calm about this? Why am I like shouldering this burden and freaking out all by myself? And then
that's what I'm saying.
He's
Olive is like, oh my God, everyone thinks we're dating. And on the inside, on the outside, Adam is like completely like stone faced. He's like, what's the problem? And on the inside, he's like dancing a little jig. He's like, this is amazing. This is like I'm thrilled.
Yes. So he's like, what if we just don't? And she's like, what? He's just like, what if we just let them think we're dating? Just casual fake dating. And she's like, what? And he's like, yeah, I could totally get something out of it too.
Yeah, Olive is like, what's in it for you? And Adam in his head, the fulfillment of all of my wildest dreams. I'm out loud, I want more research money. Yeah. And I'm like, you sneaky little bastard. And this is when Adam like metaphorically whips out the fake dating playbook. And like, I don't know anything about sports, but this is definitely the point where like Adam flips to play number 1 or whatever the fuck, like the opening bit, like pretend that this fake dating equally benefits both of you in order to win your true love.
Yes.
And Adam is like, check, let's fake date.
So for one thing, I found this like really satisfying like justification for why they're fake dating. It's honestly a little weaker on Olive's end, like for the whole On thing, but like I don't like when it's just like just so obviously like no reason for them to fake date. I don't know. I feel like this is actually plausible because he's like, Stanford thinks that I'm a flight risk because I'm like such a good scientist and I'm always like constantly people want to recruit me away like other schools. And so they've frozen like half my research funds. So if I convince them that I have a girlfriend, then they'll think that I'm like, especially a girlfriend who's in a PhD program, they'll think that I'm planning to stick around and they'll let me have my money. So that's like very plausible. Like, honestly, I don't know if that's the most effective way to convince them that you're staying. Like, I guess it's cheaper than buying a house.
Yeah, which he also hasn't done. He rents.
Yeah, it's very plausible. It's not like some shit like, oh, I just can't let people think I'm not a womanizer. Like, I don't even know. It's always like the most flimsy thing. Whatever. So yeah, he pitches this. And then and this is when they have the no bike lanes thing, because he's like, oh, do you need a ride home? And she's like, nah, I bike. And he's like, there are no bike lanes around here, young lady.
Stern brunch daddy gets upset.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't put your safety at risk. And she's like, whatever. And he's like, do you even have a helmet? So they agree to fake date, but they're both like, what do we do on dates? Because they're such big nerds that they don't know.
So Olive's like, have you considered getting a real girlfriend? And he's like, have you considered getting a real date? It's like, touche.
And they just roast each other the whole conversation.
Yeah. And Olive's like, we need ground rules. Like, this will get tricky. And Adam's like, how many times have you done this? And she's like, 0. But I am familiar with the trope. I just love that kind of like,
I love the acknowledgement, like
the break in the fourth wall.
And Adam is like, well, of course I'm familiar with the trope. I have this like scrapbook that I made in my pocket that I'm following. But exteriorly, he's like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. What?
Also, when he first tells her he's a flight risk, she's like, oh my God, he's a felon on parole. He's like...
For like throwing, he thinks it's because he threw like a petri dish at one of his like students once, and so he's like on parole for assault. Which, spoiler alert for the end of the book, could be something that eventually happens.
Yeah. So Olive's like, okay, so if we're going to be like fake dating, we need to be seen around campus like at least a few times, which like, I guess, I don't know. It's weird to me because simultaneously we're told that this department is like huge and not everyone knows everyone. And it's like so big, and Olive only has like her 2 friends and everyone else is just like, she barely knows them. But also somehow like it's critical that they're seen in public, but whatever. I'll like suspend disbelief for that.
Well, if a professor and a student are dating in your department, even if you don't know who they are, you're going to learn quick. Like, you're going to be looking up this girl's Facebook and immediately, like, trying to get all the, like, tea on her.
Sure, but are they really going to be suspicious if they don't see them together? You know, I feel like I would just assume that they're, like, doing things outside, like, off campus.
No, but they need people to be talking about it because Adam needs to be seen as settling down.
That's true. So, yeah. So they're like, what can we do together? And like you said, like, she's like, what do you do for fun? And he's like, she's like, what do you do when you're not at work and you're at home? And he's like, well, sometimes I work from home also. Sometimes I go to the gym. And like, what else? But then he's like, well, what do you do for fun? And she like can't think of anything. However, throughout this book, she's like constantly doing fun things with her friends. She's like, An's coming over for beer and s'mores. She's like baking with Malcolm. They're like going to picnics. Like, I don't know. It just seems.
But I feel like it's one of those moments, the same thing when someone is like, when you're like, oh, I like to read romance. And someone's like, oh, recommend me some romance. And then your brain has like a 404 error. And you're like, I have never read a romance book in my life. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They also both like to run because Adam says he likes to run and Olive thinks like, oh, I like running too. And like later, like it's mentioned a few times. She's like, I run 2 marathons a year, but it's never mentioned, like they don't mention it to each other. It's never like a mutual thing that like comes up despite the fact they have it in common. But I don't know. Whatever.
I just assume it's just a fun background thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Olive is also like, no sex rule. And
like, what? I would have thought that would have been unspoken. Meanwhile, in his head, Adam is like, God fucking damn it. Like, this sets me 3 plays back.
I actually don't understand why she feels the need to say that. In general, in fake dating, like, why would you ever need to do anything in private to fool people? You know what I mean? Like, no one's ever going to see that unless you're exhibitionists.
Okay, so Malcolm's still mad at her.
Yeah.
And he's like, I can't believe you would date Adam. And she's like, Malcolm, it's fake. Like, it's all a scam to get on to date Jeremy. And he's like, oh, that's insane, but like, fine, whatever. Like, so just keep in the back of your mind that Malcolm is in on it, like from the beginning.
Yeah.
Which makes some things that Malcolm does later on a little bit rude.
Yes.
Like, very rude.
Indeed. Yeah. Malcolm's whole thing is that he just like likes to sleep around with all people. He's like bi or pansexual.
He's a slutty bisexual, which is a little bit of a stereotype, so I don't love it, but whatever. And he also has parents that he wants to go work in industry versus academia, and his parents are like, who are academics, are like, that's stupid.
That's like one reason he was so mad at Adam making him redo stuff in the beginning, because he's like trying to put in the minimum effort and just like graduate, which like honestly I feel that it's like so annoying when like And then here we have like Adam being like, I just want you to be the best scientist and academic. And Malcolm's like, fuck that. Like, I just like, let me fucking
I just want to
graduate.
make high six figures. That's what I want. Like, no, thank you. Don't care about tenure.
Yeah.
So now we have fake dating Wednesdays.
Yeah, which is their coffee meetups at the campus Starbs, where Adam buys Olive hundreds of dollars worth of pumpkin spice. Honestly,
which is
goals.
excellent. While also like telling her that she shouldn't eat so much sugar because he's a stern brunch daddy. But important, very, very important thing to know about this first date and about all of Adam's casual dress is that Adam's go-to casual dress is a Henley. For those of you that are not aware what a Henley is, I will give you approximately 5 seconds to Google it. I guarantee you have seen one before. Ready? Okay, now that you know what a Henley is, you also know, if you read any sort of contemporary romance, that the Henley is second only to the button-down white shirt with sleeves rolled up to the elbows in terms of clothing to show that a hero is sexy that are used by romance novelists. So Adam walks in this really well-fitting black Henley. Naturally, it's black because he's Kylo Ren. And Olive is like, oh my God, I never noticed before that Adam is hot. And I am like, ma'am, I'm supposed to believe that you are a rom-com and romance novel aficionado and you aren't aware of the Henley Rule? Like, are you kidding me? What? Like, I swear to fucking God, I have never read a contemporary in which the hero has not been described as wearing a Henley at least once. At least once. And I agree that Henleys are great, but I'm like, Olive, you're full of shit.
Here's the thing. We know that Olive watches rom-coms like with her eyes. We don't know that she reads romance books. And I'm going to be honest.
No, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong.
Why?
You brought this up when I first brought this up. And then later on in the book, she specifically says all the rom-coms I've watched and the romance novels I've read. So Olive explicitly thinks I have read romance novels, which means that she knows. She knows.
The idea of a Henley is much sexier than a Henley in execution most of the time, in my opinion.
I'm just saying that this is how it works.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying this is the deal. It's Henley is hot.
Adam walks in and naturally he like orders his black coffee because of course he like doesn't eat sugar. He only eats vegetable and black coffee and maybe hamburger occasionally. And naturally Olive orders exactly what I would order, pumpkin spice and like food and whatever.
Yeah, no.
And
Adam in this situation. Sometimes I like splurge and get a hot chocolate, but it's either like it's usually a black cold brew. That's what I get. That's my Starbucks order.
Adam is like, I'm paying. And she's like, you don't have to pay. Like, that's so sexist, which like, whatever. I could get into that. Like, take the free shit where you can, ladies. You ain't getting it. You ain't getting it for free anywhere else.
You get paid 75 cents from the dollar. Like, you deserve to have your shit paid for.
And he's like, it's not because you're a woman. It's because I'm way richer than you because I'm a professor and you're freaking poor. And she's like, yeah, fair. And so she like loads up and gets like a ton more like scones and shit. Like,
I just imagining like all of like scooping all of like the chips and muffins just into her arms and walking up to the counter and being like, hello.
Because at the end she's like, thank you for buying me 3 days worth of food. And I'm like, either she's like a severe calorie deficit or like she's bought the entire fucking Starbucks. And I choose to believe the latter.
What she needs to do, they have those like Starbucks, like the snack packs with like the cheese and the fruit and the crackers. And they also have like the sandwiches. So all you got to do is get like 5 boxes of those. And there you go. It's like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, woo.
So also, okay, we get the scene, okay? This is the scene. I brought this up in the hating game, but it's the scene where like some kind of service worker is like obviously eyeing the hero. So it's like the way the blonde barista was staring at Adam, but he wasn't paying attention at all because he's too into the heroine. That's like the classic, like, yeah. So we get that at this point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's hear it. So they buy the things, they go sit down. These coffee dates are only supposed to be like 10 minutes, so they're not super long. But Olive is like, oh, where did you grow up? And Adam says he grew up in The Hague because his mom was a diplomat. And those of you who are smarter than me are probably like, yeah, of course, The Hague. It's a city in the Netherlands. And no matter how many times I look up The Hague, no matter how many times I hear that, which is strangely frequently, like I don't know why The Hague is like such a popular like spot included in books and movies, but it is. But every time I picture a prison. I don't know why. The phrase The Hague just sounds like a fucking prison. And like I'm like, Adam grew up in jail. Like what it like in the Netherlands? Like I know it's in the Netherlands, but it just sounds like it's like Rikers Island. Like it's like telling me like I grew up in Alcatraz.
It does sound like a super secure location for sure. Like if not a prison, like a castle fortress.
Yes.
Like it sounds the Ice Palace for people who have read Six of Crows. I think it's called the Ice Palace, but that's what I'm picturing when I picture The Hague. Just like super secure fortress / castle / like center of government.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is also the time when she asked him about his favorite color.
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's like, I don't have a favorite color. What are you talking about? I guess black. And I'm like, what?
I never understand why people feel the need to act like they're too good for the favorite color question, or like what's even more baffling is being confused by the idea of having a favorite color, because like, is that not like your entire childhood? That's just like, it's on the level of like knowing how to get out of quicksand in like things that are drilled into that you need to have down pat. But yeah, Adam's like, oh, black, I guess.
But then Olive is also like, white, I guess. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, Rachel, ask me what my favorite color is.
What's your favorite color, Allison?
Blue. It's been blue since I was 3 years old, and I'm not changing now. My favorite color will be blue for the next 60 fucking years.
I have a complicated relationship with that question because my initials spell a color, and I have a vivid memory of like being in first grade and thinking like, I kind of like some of the other crayons better, but I don't want to insult my namesake crayon, and like apologizing to the red crayon because I couldn't use it all the time.
I do associate. I don't know what I do in my mind. I'm like, I guess Rachel's favorite color is red. And like,
yeah, of course.
And some level, I know that's not true necessarily, but I couldn't tell you. I couldn't take even a stab in the dark of what your favorite, maybe green.
I would
maybe
say
purple.
Coral? Yeah. So Olive's like, after having that like awkward combo, Olive's like, all right, like this is awkward, time to go. And Adam, in his unstated internal monologue, he's like, shit, can't let her go. And he's like, wait, where were you born? And
he's living his fake dating dreams. He's not ready for the dream to be over.
Yeah, he's reeling her back in. And that's when she tells him about like growing up in Canada, and and he like tells her more about like his funds being locked up. And I just don't understand, like, wouldn't locking up his funds, like, make him want to leave? Like, why would Stanford? I just feel like that's counterproductive. Also, why is Stanford, like, Stanford is such a good school. Like, why are they that afraid of losing people? Like, is Harvard really that much more prestigious than Stanford?
I just think Adam is...
For biology?
Maybe they're worried that, like, they're going to pay Adam more, and so he's going to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
He's a hot shot.
It seems like that would make you want to leave.
Yeah. Well, the only reason they think he's going to leave is because he just got a grant with Tom Benton.
We don't know
who works at Harvard.
We don't know who it is yet.
We don't know who he is. We know that he got a grant with someone who works at Harvard. Yeah. And so they're like, oh, well, he's going to move to Harvard.
Yeah. So they go outside, and this is the first time the word petrichor is used. They're like, the smell of petrichor. Now, if you don't know that word, if that's not in your vocabulary, think of like what that evokes for you. For me, it evokes like chemicals and like just like burning nostril shit. But apparently it means the smell of freshly fallen rain, which is much more pleasant.
Which is very lovely. But yeah, so like not only is this a book about academia, but you really do learn some things because you learn what petrichor is now, and then it's mentioned later on for a second time in the book, and it's reinforced. And I now know that the smell of rain is called petrichor. Which does, I agree, sound like some sort of chemical that would burn the inside of my nose. Like, for example, when I was like in the 6th grade, what was it? So I used to get nosebleeds all the time. And Mom took me to an ENT who burned the inside of my nose with like some sort of chemical something. Basically, like the reason I was getting nosebleeds was because the capillaries or whatever are like too close to the surface. So like they get like opened easily in my nose. So he was like, oh, it'll scar over and then like you won't get nosebleeds anymore. And that's it seems to me like it feels instinctually like petrichor is the chemical that he used in that situation, even though it's definitely not.
I mean, it's like an amalgam of petrol and like chlorine. So like very abrasive things.
Overall,
very like
not fun.
Yeah.
Listen, sometimes scientists are great at naming things because sometimes they like name birds like Dickhead McDickhead because like it's a bird that like bit him and like that's a scientific name and it's like wonderful. And then sometimes they name a delicious smell petrichor. So hit or miss with the scientists.
Well, apparently this word originated in the 60s and it's a blend of petro, which means relating to rocks, and ichor, which is like, the blood of the gods, right? Yeah. It's funny. Interesting.
Relating to rocks? It's about
Yeah,
rain.
I understand.
That's the complete opposite.
It's the earthy scent produced when rain falls on dry soil. So it's not just any rain. I'm not gonna be honest. I don't know what that specific scent is, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I'm sure that's
Look at these rocks. Look at these rocks.
I'm sure that's like heresy to some people out there. But so Olive goes home, checks her email. Who does she hear back for? But fucking Tom Benton. And he's like,
we're going to have a meeting. I'm going to be in Stanford. Why don't we have a meeting next Wednesday at 2 p.m. or sometime?
Why is the voice changed so much? Just do a different voice every time. Yeah, it used to be a bro voice. Now it's like a hoity-toity.
I know. I got it in my head that he's like a Connecticut Yankee.
No, that one was like 16th century dandy and derogative, like derogatory. Derogatory. So she's like freaking out.
Yeah. But the really only thing that happens in the week between these two fake dating Wednesdays is that Olive is just constantly using their fake relationship to get free stuff / in her research. Because like everyone's afraid to like steal her pipettes or like switch her TAing time slots and like all of this shit now because they think Adam is going to bring down the wrath of God, which frankly, from what I know about his character, he absolutely would bring down the wrath of God on anyone who fucked his girlfriend. But she's like, I feel a little bit guilty, but also like academia is a cutthroat world, and like I'm gonna use whatever I can to get ahead. And also, I don't want to have to keep like buying new pipettes because people keep stealing mine. And I'm like, yeah, Olive, like, use it.
Yeah. So Olive like hates public speaking. Like she's like the stereotypical good at science, bad at talking type of gal.
Which is very, I think, frankly, side note, like very unfair to expect academics to be extroverts, which seems to be like the vibe that I'm getting from like Adam and Olive's like constant conversations that like you constantly have to like network with people and like give talks and like in order to like get research money. And I'm like, academia, like of all the of all the professions, academia seems the most suited to like introverted nerds who just want to like hang out with mice all day. And like you're telling me that they have to be extroverts?
I don't know about networking constantly, but you need good communication skills because like how else are you going? Like, you know what I mean? It doesn't matter how much you know if you can't like communicate it to other people.
Sure, but there's a difference between being able to like write up a good paper and like having to give a presentation in front of like 300 people.
Yeah, no, for sure. I hate that.
And like Adam is like, yeah, you constantly have to be like schmoozing people for money and like,
oh yeah, I don't know about that. That's like not a thing in my field. That sounds like it would suck ass. So Olive like spends a sleepless night like practicing her presentation and annoying Malcolm like until he finally like throws a lemon at her or something, and he's like, go practice in your room. And then she like wakes up and she's like, shit, I can't wear my like baggy jeans and like ripped up t-shirt like I normally would, and so she like has to come up with an outfit.
So she shows up to fake dating Wednesdays because her meeting with Tom isn't until later in the day, but like she's already obviously gotten dressed for it. So she shows up to the coffee date, and who appears but little dick Tom Benton to just show how much of a dickwad he is in his first scene.
And we're kind of like, she tries to throw us off the scent a little because his handshake, I noticed this, it was like, he had a nice grip, firm and soft, which like normally the baddie it would be like, his handshake was really sweaty in contrast to the rest of him. Tom's like, hey, Adam, bro, like I got my stuff all moved into your house. And Adam's like, hey, Olive, have you met my best friend forever, Tom Benton?
No. Holden is his best friend.
Sure.
Rachel.
But like, yeah.
Close personal friend, Tom Benton, but not in the number one slot.
And collaborator, yeah. And Olive's like, shit. And then Tom's like, who's this? And Olive's like, oh, I can still save this. And Adam's like, this is Olive. And Tom's like, oh, you're the... And Olive tries to be like, I'm the student you're supposed to be meeting with. And Tom's like, you're the girlfriend we've all heard so much about up in Boston. And Adam's like, what? Like, how has it gotten to Boston? He's like, and Tom's like, oh, well, you're the hot commodity in the science world. Like, all the ladies are after you. And so,
Which,
like,
fair.
yeah.
Like, I get it.
Yeah. But Olive's like, oh, actually, like, I also was supposed to meet with you to like come work in your lab. And Tom's like, oh, well, why don't we just do it right now? And Olive's like, shit. And Tom's like, so tell me what's cool about your research. Like the worst question ever. But Adam back and her brain freezes, which like I totally empathize with. Like this has happened to me on many an interview. Like it's just like
404 error.
the worst. Yes, like just complete blank. But Adam intervenes and he's like, what the fuck kind of stupid question is that, bro?
You should ask her real questions. Here, this, and this real question. And then Tom is like, sure, I'm asking you that. And so then Olive explains. And then Tom is like, well, why do you want to do this? Pancreatic cancer is pretty niche.
Olive is like, oh, I want to come up with a blood test for early detection. And I'm like, are you the next Elizabeth Holmes? Like, is this like a Theranos scam, Olive? We've seen this before. No. Magic early detection.
Yeah. But she's actually doing the years of research required. She's not just like scamming people with her weirdly deep voice and her mystical hypnotizing eyes like Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah. But
yeah, she's like, Tom is like, why do you want to do this? Like pancreatic cancer is a very niche subject, like field of study. And like, you're also like not even in your final year yet. Like it's rare for people to like know what they want to study so early on. And she gets all clammy because obviously she wants to study it because her mom had cancer.
No. Tom outright asks her, did you know someone with it? And she's like, my mom. And he's like, did she die? And he's like, he like asks her all these personal questions.
And yeah, so if you didn't know Tom was a dick already, like, woohoo, here you go, like slapped in the face with it with like a wet fish.
Yeah. My mouth dropped when he asked this. When I was listening to this the first time, I was like, oh. Yeah.
I was like, this is someone we're supposed to like? Because like I didn't know Tom was the villain.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot more red flags that like pop up for Tom like in the second reading. But like the first time I was like, and honestly, that's my favorite kind of villain. The villain where you're like, I feel kind of nasty about you, but it seems like I'm supposed to like you. And so you don't know whether the author just like doesn't know how to write characters who aren't assholes or like whether like they're setting up the villain. And I like when it turns out to be the villain.
For sure. And but it's not like it comes out of nowhere because like if you go back and look at it again, it's like obvious that it's being set up, but it's like at the time, it's like the opposite of Frozen. Okay. Because in Frozen, from the very beginning, I was like, there's no way this can be the actual love interest for Anna because like it's too soon. It's just too soon. This is not how it goes. But then I was watching the entire movie for like signs that he was evil, and I couldn't like see anything. And then lo and behold, he's evil at the end. But this is like the opposite of that.
So when Tom asked about her mom, he's like, did your mom die? Adam is like, dude, stop. And it's described as less of a warning and more of a threat. Yes. And I was like, ooh, that's my catnip, baby.
I love
that is what I like to see.
I also wrote that down. Yeah. No, it's great.
And then Tom asked her for a full report of her research.
By like 2 days from now.
Flag. Yeah, this is a red flag I noticed where I was like, oh, he's asking for like all of her research and like all of her info, like bad. He's going to steal her shit.
Oh, that is not what I do
later on.
He does try to do it, but I did not think of that at all. I was
no,
like,
upon second reading, I was like, don't
like,
do that, Olive. Like, never tell someone everything.
I was like, this seems like totally on par for like just random thing that you'd be asked to do in like 2 days, which is exactly the time frame that he gives her. And she's like, okay, I guess I just won't sleep and I'll like dissect a bunch of mice. Which, just side note, I just like hate. It doesn't happen a lot. We're not at all like hit over the head with this, but I just hate even like the 1 or 2 reminders that she like does mean things to mice for a living. Like it's just like icky. I don't know. I know I'm not going to be the person who's sitting here and saying we like shouldn't experiment on animals in any situation. And honestly, like detection for pancreatic cancer is probably up there in like things that are definitely worthy causes. However, it's just still so bizarre to me that that's like part of our society and we're all just like chill with it and don't even talk about it. Like,
yeah. It doesn't make sense in a lot of cases because like animals don't react to things. In some cases it does, but I'm saying like
I feel like I'm not qualified to decide like what is and isn't valid. It's just like weird. It's just very like incongruent with the rest of our ethos.
Specifically about like makeup testing. Like most makeup doesn't react to animals in like the way
Sure.
it does to humans. So like there's just because something's safe for a rabbit doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean it'll be safe for a
It's
human.
just very like ends justify the means, which is like usually something that overtly as a society I feel like we are very against, you know? Like I just feel like on the face, like that's something that is very much like no.
Allegedly.
Right. But like when you dig deeper, it's like there's a bunch it's like disturbing things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. But Tom is giving a talk the next day, and he's like, "Are you coming to my talk?" And Olive is like, "I had no fucking idea you were giving a talk," but she's like, "Yeah, of course." And Adam is like, "I'll email you the details because
Yeah.
apparently we're living in 1999." And so then they go to the talk the next day, and it's very, very crowded because like half the department had it made like mandatory for their
No, it's like
students.
yeah, like other departments. Yeah.
Yeah. But so An and Olive are going, and they're like squeezing up to the front, and they get pushed up to the front by the crowd, and Olive bumps into Adam. And this is
Who has a
strike
seat?
number 2 for An, because An is like, there aren't very many chairs. You should sit on your boyfriend's lap during this presentation so I can have a seat. And I'm like, An, what the fuck?
And she doesn't just like suggest that as like a throwaway. Olive's like, "Oh no, I couldn't." And An's like, "Come on, you got to do it. Do it for my toes. Do it. Do it. Do it." And like finally like bullies
Yeah.
Olive into doing it.
And that's the thing, like when An gets called out on all this shit later, she's like, "Oh, I was just trying to help you. Like I was just trying to like tell you that like you could be openly affectionate with your boyfriend, that like to show that
Yeah.
you had the option." And I'm like, never in any of these situations did you give Olive an option. Like you just
No.
steamroll right over her. And I don't
Yeah.
like it. And also sitting on someone's lap. Olive's sitting on his lap. She's sitting on one leg because she specifically is
Yeah.
like, my knees are tucked between his legs, which just sounds vastly uncomfortable. Like
Yeah.
even if they were real dating, that just still sounds like something for like an hour-long presentation that would be horrible.
But it's like Olive's like one of her only excuses to like be physically close to him. So I feel like here's my retcon on this. It's not actually comfortable, but she's just like so into him, and she's like the chemistry is like covering up any like actual physical discomfort. She's like, you know, the fizz.
Oh, see, my excuse was that Adam just had like really meaty thighs. And
Oh
so it was
yeah.
like
Oh
actually
yeah.
wide enough.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I might have meaty thighs too. Okay, one of my friends has this dog that like will not sit on anyone's lap, but whenever I've been near her, she like sits on my lap for like hours. So like I think I might have those type
I
of
don't think
goods
so.
too.
I think there's a very big difference
It's a
between a
shape.
dog and a person.
What I'm saying is yeah.
The whole scene, I'm also thinking, I'm like, is Adam just like furiously trying to hold a boner down like
Oh,
this
for
whole time?
sure.
I'm like, this poor man. And like, how does Olive not feel it? Because Adam canonically has a huge dick. So
Yeah.
I'm like, this poor guy is probably like grandmas, dead puppies,
Oh
blood,
my
like
God.
the whole talk.
At one point she's like, "Oh, I didn't notice, but I like slid down his leg and he had to like grab me and pull me up." And I'm like, "Wow, like that's just
And then she like almost falls asleep against his chest, his
yeah.
like big beefy chest, which yes,
Yeah.
Adam Driver has a very, very
And
wide
then
beefy chest because Adam Driver is a former Marine. So picture that kind of body.
And then she's like, "Oh yeah, and like I noticed that like the crowd had gotten thinner and there's like empty seats, but I still didn't move." Which also speaks ill of Tom's speaking abilities if people are like trickling out throughout the hour-long presentation. Like,
Well, if I went to this presentation and there was nowhere to sit,
right. But enough, I mean, here's the thing though. Enough such that not only is it not standing room only, there's also empty seats. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Holden Rodriguez is also there. And he's sitting next to Adam, and he's like,
we haven't introduced Holden.
giving
yet.
him the
Holden
thumbs
gets
up.
introduced very late.
Sure, sure.
Holden Rodriguez is Adam's best friend, and he also works at Stanford, and they like met each other as diplomat children in The Hague, in prison.
Somehow, yeah.
They bonded
And
in prison.
Malcolm, Olive's roommate Malcolm, has a huge crush on Holden and has had for like years. He's like, "Do you remember that time? Do you remember that time he winked at me at the picnic 2 years ago?" Some say he had something in his eye, but I say it. Olive's like, "That was me. I said he had something in his eye."
I say every time you tell me this story.
Yeah. So, okay. So the talk ends. They go outside. right? Okay. And Anna and Olive are just like standing around chatting. And lo and behold, someone like one of the like department administrators or something has had like a car mishap, right? And so there's just like a big ass truck blocking everyone from getting out, which like, first of all, it's kind of rude to just even like own a truck in this day and age, but whatever.
Yeah, I love it.
So everyone's complaining until lo and behold, does he take his shirt off for this? I can't remember.
No, unfortunately not. His shirt is on.
Adam stomps on in and just single-handedly pushes the truck like out of the way. He just like does it.
He chats with the secretary, and some dickhead fellow grad student is next to Olive. Like, why are they just standing there chatting? Like, what dicks? I have to go home and prepare for my dissertation.
Yeah.
And then Barb, I think it's Barb, it's the secretary, the head of gossip in the department.
Yeah.
She gets in the truck and I guess puts in neutral, and then Adam like pushes it away, and everyone is like, oh my gosh, I just creamed a little in my pants. And Olive especially is like, oh, I creamed a lot in my pants. And then like everyone cheers and like drives off. And then on the boundary crossing lady of the century,
boundary breaking,
like
not in a good way, derogatory.
Dear old Odd, the fake feminist, forcing her friend to essentially like
public PDA that she's clearly uncomfortable with. Yes. She's like, go give him a kiss, Adam. I mean, Olive, go give him a kiss. He just pushed the truck out of the way. Go give him a kiss. Go give him a kiss.
She pulls out a knife, like holds it to Olive's throat. Go, bitch.
And so Olive goes up to Adam and she's like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry. She's like, we really don't need to kiss. And Adam's like, no, I didn't mean that. We can kiss.
Like, I was like, what? No. Like pulls out the Vaseline, like spreads it all over his lips, and is like, all right, I'm ready.
And I think I like this quote for some reason. His cheekbones were dusted with red. I don't know. Aww. So he's like blushing. Yeah.
That's a good quote.
Yeah. And then they kiss.
So anyway, they kiss.
In front of everyone, in front of the whole goddamn department, after just like
I just like, in what fucking universe is this like a good thing?
I just like don't like PDA in general. Like, not for other people. I'm not gonna like sit there and judge you, but like for me personally, it's just not something I'm like at all really comfortable with. And so this is like, especially, it's not just like a normal relationship. It's not even like Anna and Jeremy kissing. It's a professor and a student, which already everyone's been gossiping about for weeks. It's already like, they're already like judging her for it. It just feels very unnecessary.
Yeah, Anne truly, like, at no point is she like, oh, I'm sorry Jeremy told everybody. Like, I'm sorry I told Jeremy, and then he told everybody. She seems to, like, not in any way realize that her actions, like, she's like, how was I supposed to know that my actions would have consequences? Yeah. Like, but what? Like, no way. Yeah. Like, she's just so, like, she just, like, seems to be incapable of, like, thinking outside of, like, her, like, tunnel vision and, like, seeing that, like, what she does affects other people.
Yeah, her motives are definitely not like sinister or negative at all. But like in this situation and in most situations, I feel like effect matters more than intent. And
Anne should know that. Like as a leader of like women in STEM and like BIPOC women in STEM, like she should be very familiar with intent versus impact and like be able to like incorporate that into her life.
Yeah. So they've kissed, and now it's time for Olive to go scramble to write her stupid Tom report. And she's like, at one point, she's like, my report is 34 pages single-spaced and only 1/3 done. And I'm sorry, maybe biology professors are a different breed, but like if there's any professor that's going to be reading a 90-page report single-spaced for like some student, like they're not even going to read that if it's your actual dissertation, I feel like. Like, what? But I mean, except for if you're a dick like Tom and you're planning to like screw her over. But in general, like, what? But then Tom, being the dick he is, like emails her and like I think he moves it up by like another few days, so it gives her like even less time. So she's like,
he's like, I'm leaving on Tuesday morning. Can you swing by Adam's place before I leave for the airport and we can chat about it?
Yeah. So she gives the report to Tom. I don't think she gives it to him in person. She just emails it to him. Yeah. So after submitting her report to Tom, Olive goes into work to the lab, and her lab mate Greg is like really grumpy, and Olive is like, oh, I really don't want to deal with his like feelings right now, but I guess I like have to ask. And she's
hard
like,
relate.
She's like,
oh, I don't have the energy to deal with people right now.
She's like, what's the matter, Greg? And he just like like a cobra snaps on her, and he's like, "You're the problem. You and your fucking boyfriend. It's all your fault because he was mean to me, and he's gonna like set back my proposal like for months, and that means I can't like." I need to like graduate at the same time as my partner and like blah, blah, blah. On the one hand, like Greg is out of line for yelling at her. But on the other hand, I don't think it's unfair to judge someone based on who they choose to like date or like be with. You know what I mean? It does reflect on you if you're willing to overlook how badly your partner treats everyone around them, even if they're nice to you. Right?
Yeah. So
So,
yeah, I mean, Greg is like, in some ways, like I do understand where Greg is coming from, and the same way like where Malcolm is coming from, like before
right,
he knows that it's fake, because he's like, that guy was a total dick to me, and you know all about how horrible
right.
he was to me, and like yet you're gonna be
For
in an
sure.
intimate relationship with him. So I do see where Greg is coming from. I would still like to squirt pipette like Greg with just like a little pipette of like some sort of like mild acid, like spraying a cat with like a spray bottle of water. Like pss, pss, no, like don't bite that. Like that's what I would like to do to Greg right now. And I'd be like,
Fair
can
enough.
you chill the fuck out and stop yelling at this random woman?
Fair
Also,
enough.
again, like there's the element of the fact that like Olive is one of like 5 women in this whole program, and like Greg is this like mediocre white man who is just taking out his anger issues. And I'm like, stop making this a toxic environment for women, Greg. Get out of here.
So Olive, like, this gets her thinking, and she's like, yeah, why are you such a dick, Adam? So she like texts him for the first time, and she's like, what did you say to Greg? And he's like, I can't, he's understandably like, I can't
Well,
discuss other students with you.
no. First, he's like, no, she's like, did you fail like Greg's dissertation or whatever? And he's like, Olive? Because she
Yeah.
never, it's the first time she's texted him, so he doesn't have like, he doesn't know it's her.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I did. You had a problem with that? And she's like, why are you such a dick to everyone? Like, you realize that you're, what are the exact words?
What
It's
is it?
like
Oh, he's
abrasive and antagonistic.
unnecessarily antagonistic and unapproachable.
Yes. And he's like, what? And I don't know if she realizes at this point, but I guess like that's the first time he's ever heard that. He like was not thinking of himself like that. But she like basically just yells at him. She like goes after him, and she's like, stop being such a dick. And then
But then he's like, I hold students to a high standard. And if you have a
yeah.
problem with that, get the fuck out. And then she's like, fuck you.
She's
And then
like,
immediately regrets it, but
well,
doesn't take it back.
right. She's like, I feel a little bit bad about it, but not enough to apologize.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really have any immediate consequences because the next time they see each other is at the department picnic. Yet another like detail of academia that is just like painfully accurate. They all have to go to this picnic. Like Olive is required to be there by her advisor, Aishul Aslan. And the gang is all there. And naturally, On, being the caring friend she is, she like starts a debate about sunscreen. And she's like, everyone put on sunscreen. Olive, like, she's like, I think there's like, is there a link between freckles and sunscreen? Because I guess Olive has freckles. On naturally is foisting sunscreen on everyone, which relatable, like good for her. It is California. It's sunny. This is not one of those winter low UV type situations I was talking about earlier.
I really appreciate this
Yeah.
theme and like the
Yeah.
modern rom-com of like having just a brief aside about why you should wear sunscreen.
Yeah.
Also, later on, we get like a pro-vaccination spiel. Like
Oh,
Ali
yeah.
Hazelwood is really like, take care of yourselves in these incredibly easy ways, you dummies.
Yeah. So Olive puts on sunscreen, but then for some reason On is like, you need more sunscreen. You have freckles. You need more sunscreen. And she's like, they're like debating whether there's a link between freckles and skin cancer. And I'm like, bitch, of course. Like I thought that, whatever. Skip that. So On, being the annoying bitch she is, she dumps like another boatload of sunscreen into Olive's hands. And Olive is like,
After
girl,
Olive has already applied sunscreen.
Right. So Olive is like, my skin cannot physically absorb this much like goop. Okay. It's in my hands. And she's like, what am I supposed to do with this? And On sees an opportunity to be fucking annoying, looks across the picnic field, and who does she see? But Adam shirtless.
Hot Adam playing, you guessed it, ultimate frisbee, which I would not have accepted, honestly, any other sport. If you had asked me what sport academics play, I wouldn't have given you an answer, but I cannot possibly imagine a bunch of like nerds in a field playing anything other than ultimate frisbee.
I cannot imagine all these people being shirtless at a department picnic. That would just not happen. That's like, we got to suspend disbelief for that one. But
yeah, this department seems like a little bit more chill than I think like most departments would be a la like
I
PDA
just feel like
and
in
like
general than any like workplace would be. Like, can you imagine like people being shirtless at a work event? like at all.
That's weird.
Anyway, but Adam's like super hot, so he's allowed to be shirtless. So he comes over to say hi, and Ann is like, Olive, I got a solution for your sunscreen problem. Go put it on, Adam. Go do it.
And then Olive is like, is that a gun? Like, are you pointing a gun at me?
A lightsaber.
Like Olive turns around and she just hears a she turns around and like Ann has like one of those like double-sided lightsabers and she's just like like flipping it around in her hands and she's like, go put on sunscreen.
So Olive is once again bullied into unnecessary PDA, but necessary for the plot here. What?
And she also like, she's like, what the hell? Like, no, I don't want to do this. Can you please take it? And Anna's like, don't be so dramatic. And I just like had such flashbacks to like every friend I've ever had who like I expressed like a relatively reasonable complaint and they're like, stop complaining. Like, whatever. It's not that big a deal. And I'm like, well, it's a big deal to me. Like, that's why I'm complaining. So
yeah, I feel like if I were Olive by this point, I would have just like grabbed Ann's arm and like Ann would be the one with the sunscreen problem at this point.
Absolutely. Yeah. I just would have like gooped it down her arm and I'd be like, it's your problem now. I'm not fucking dealing with this.
Yeah. Or like the grass, like I don't know, whatever.
Yeah, just put it on the grass.
But instead we get this like sensual massage oil but sunscreen scene.
In front of the whole fucking department.
Yeah. Oh my God. But Olive gets to touch Adam, so that's a plus for her. Also, just as a side note, Olive at this point, this is like throughout the book, but she has, I forget why this is relevant here, but she left her phone in the car. Like Malcolm drove him there and she left her phone in his car. And just in general, like, are we really supposed to believe that Olive, a certified millennial, leaves her phone in cars at home with regular frequency? Like a
certified cusper. Like she's like millennial Gen Z cusper.
No, she's not. She's my age.
Okay, you're a cusper.
Barely. Anyway, you can't even go to Disney World without a smartphone anymore. Like, I just don't understand. Like, Olive seems to like know how to use technology. Obviously, she's like working in a very high-tech lab, and yet somehow she just like doesn't have her phone with her at all times. It doesn't add up.
That's a very common thing, I feel like, in books where people are like, oh yeah, I just left my phone in the car. Right. Like I don't have my phone on me. And I'm just like, I can't. I mean, maybe this is just a sign of like my fucking cell phone addiction, but like I literally cannot imagine like if I leave the house without my phone, like unless I really, really can't go back and get it, like I'm going back and getting it. But also like I cannot imagine a situation in which I leave the house without my phone.
Right.
But like mom does that all the time. But also mom is like Gen X / boomer.
I get that it's necessary for the plot sometimes because like, you know, in general, like if everyone had constant communication at all times, like a lot of books would just be not feasible anymore. So you have to have that. But it could be like your battery's dead. You don't have service. It could be any number of things. You break it, you know, anything but like just casually forgetting. I mean, whatever. Good for Olive, but like I don't buy it.
It's very odd. Like why is it in your pocket?
Yeah.
Like it would just be in my like pants pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. So we get this like sunscreen oil rub down, public rub down. So yeah, okay. So Olive is having a tough day at the lab, and she's like, when she came in to the lab that morning, she looked in the vending machine and she was like, okay, there's a Twix left. All right.
No, I thought it was salt and vinegar chips.
Salt and vinegar chips. Yeah, salt and vinegar chips. She's like, this is my treat. Okay.
Which
I very much feel that. Yes.
Chip.
And so now it's 3 hours later and she has her 15-minute break and she goes out and there's no fucking salt and vinegar chips left, which like I would die. It's
disaster.
That
happened to me. I'm like, except with like, I think with like Welch's fruit snacks in the like vending machine at work, I'll be like, I'll go there during lunch and I'm like, okay, there's a Welch's fruit snacks in there. I'm going to get that as my mid-afternoon treat. And then I go and there's no fucking Welch's fruit snacks.
I kind of want to start a vending machine empire. I don't know if you're in on this or not, but I feel like it's
Is this going to be the same thing as like the time we were going to like rent real estate to college kids?
Yes, but vending machines. Yes, but it'll be like good snacks. We'll have all the good snacks.
You know what we could do, Rachel? A laundromat with a vending machine inside.
Here's the thing. My vending machine, okay, how do you feel about this? Let's say there's 6 rows. 3 rows are salt and vinegar chips. 3 rows are Kit Kats, and that's it. And then we have a separate one that's all Dasani water bottle and Mountain Dew. You in?
We're not going to put a Diet Coke in there?
No, I hate Diet Coke. Gives me a headache.
Okay, well, I love Diet Coke, so like I can't agree to this.
We can put a Diet Dr. Pepper.
No, absolutely not. Diet Coke. No.
We can have like a box of warm Diet Coke off to the side.
No. Diet Coke is best when it's crisp and fresh.
Diet Coke is evil.
Get out of here.
Anyway, you're in on the chips.
You're betraying
and the
our
Kit Kats.
family.
Chips and Kit Kats.
Would you consider Cheetos as well?
Cheetos are good, yeah. Because sometimes I feel like actually those would be the perfect way to offset the sometimes pain that comes from salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah. Sometimes your mouth is a little too fragile to have salt and vinegar chips.
If you live in the 3/4 of the country with Kroger brand, the private selection salt and vinegar chips, none of the pain, all of the gain.
Oh, the best salt and vinegar chips I've ever had were the ones they used to sell in high school in the cafeteria at lunch, and I would get them all the time, and I don't remember what brand they were. They were some sort of like
Hers.
bougie organic brand. No, they were some sort of, they weren't like a mainstream.
Boulder Canyon, because that's the avocado oil. Oh, those are so fucking good. The avocado oil ones.
No, they weren't avocado oil in high school.
Yeah, it's true.
They were just regular salt and vinegar chips.
Yeah,
I don't know what they were. They were some like
on that kick
like bougie brand. And they were fucking delicious. And I would get them before I had lunch before English class senior year. And despite the fact that the syllabus at the very top of the syllabus, which I guess just like totally skipped over this line, it says like no food in class. I ate almost every day in that class. And you know what? I never got called out on it. Like never once was my teacher like, you're not allowed to eat in here. And I would bring like full on, like I would bring like a basket of fries and like ketchup, and I'd just be like dipping them. Like one time we had a 2-hour delay, and I had like I'd gone out for breakfast before, and I had leftover pancakes, and I like whipped those puppies out during class, and like my teacher was like, is someone eating pancakes? And I was like, hello.
You know what my first thought was with that? I was like, how did you do that with a mask on?
Oh no.
Well, actually, my first thought was like, at least chips wouldn't make a big mess, but then I just pictured the mess that like your average child could make with a bag of chips.
I was a very clean child.
That. Yeah,
I was gifted.
Okay, so Olive is standing there at the vending machine having a meltdown. She's like, no, this is all I wanted. Oh my God. And then the shadows speak to her. They're like, is there a problem? And it's Adam sitting in his dark ass corner in the dark, no lights on, munching the last bag of salt and vinegar chips. And she's like, you. And this is after she's already given up and bought like a Twix, which is also like great option. I can see
not
if you were gunning for salty, I think I would say they're equal. It's just that like if you're gunning for salty, oh yeah, I love Twix.
For some reason, when you yell that far away, it sounds like a 1940s reporter, and you're like, ooh. And then the Japanese have bombed Hiroshima. We are at war.
No.
Also, Humphrey Bogart is down the street.
I don't think I've ever been given such a great compliment on my voice.
He killed 13 ducks before they got him, and I know people. Anyway, they have a cute little bonding moment in the break room. This is when Olive explains fully about her mom. Like
Adam gives her his chips. He's like, you can have these. And she's like, oh, do you want this Twix instead? And he's like, no, I don't like chocolate. Which, remember that. It will become relevant later. In a very big way. Yes. So this is when we find out about her mom.
Yes. We find out about her full like foster system background and how she like legally emancipated at 16.
Which, how does that work? Like, do you have to support? How does you emancipate at 16? Do you get any money from the state? Like, do you have to get a job?
Presumably her mom has an estate.
I don't think so.
What do you mean? She inherited stuff from her mom.
She said that they were like not that well off. She didn't have that much money.
Okay.
I just mean in general. Okay,
I'm asking, if you can show, because she could get a job.
So did she?
And it's like Canada. She was probably on welfare.
Yeah, true. So you can still get support from the state then. It's just like they're a different system.
Probably. I don't know fully how it works. I'm assuming that that's much more of an accessible thing to do in Canada than it would be in the US for like the average kid. Because I know that there are like, I've definitely heard several cases of like celebrity children who emancipate from their parents like early.
Right. No, I think it happens with, I would guess that it's like with the same regularity in the US. I just don't know like what the system is. Yeah, like, are you expected to get a job? Like, do you have to support yourself? Because on sex education, I'm assuming that's like the deal with Maeve too, right?
Okay, like, that's again in the UK. And
sure. I know, but I wonder, like, is she? I don't don't think getting. It's unclear.
Rachel, it seems again, like I watched 2 episodes of Sex Education.
Sure,
I'm
but
waiting
I
for
thought you watched the whole first season. Oh, no. Why are you so into Maeve and Otis if you only watched 2 episodes?
I attach early, and I don't like change.
You'll be peeled away.
Get out of here.
Oh, wait, but this is the other thing that comes to mind. Sorry, very much tangent, but Eleanor Oliphant, right? In Eleanor Oliphant, she's also in the UK, but when she ages out of the system, and I know they don't do this in the US, but I'm guessing in the UK, even when she ages out of the system, they still like set her up with an apartment and stuff and like let her go
That's
and pay
because
for.
she's still on welfare. And also because Eleanor Oliphant is a little bit different because she has like developmental difficulties.
I guess so. Yeah.
So she's like on the she's like I can think probably considered disabled. And so like that's a different kind of welfare system.
Yeah.
Than,
but it seems true, I guess.
Than just like needing like support because like you don't have money.
Yeah. So they bond. Olive, her mother was like her only family member she had. Her dad was never in the picture and her grandparents were already dead. So yeah, she's been alone. And then she went to college in the US and got like a full ride and everything.
Yeah. And Olive asks Adam now, she's like, why don't you have a real girlfriend? And Adam is like, I'm like in love with somebody else.
No, does he say that?
Well, basically, he's like, oh, like there's somebody else or something.
But at one point, this is like earlier, but at one point she's like, you're not married or anything, are you? And he's like, yeah, but my wife and the twins won't mind. And she's like, oh no. She like goes this spiral similar to the felon spiral. She's like, oh my God, I'm bringing up this family. His kids are going to become serial killers. His wife's probably crying into the pillow. Like, yeah.
So things that happen, they get interrupted by Malcolm in the break room. And so that cute moment is over and then they leave and he's like, bye, Olive, and like brushes her hand as she moves away. And then she also gets into Tom's lab.
Oh, yeah. Tom accepts her.
Okay. So Tom is like, can you roll on over to Adam's and we can discuss your research before I leave? And Olive is like, yeah, sure. So she's like, Adam, quick, what's your address? And she goes to Adam's house. She rolls up and she's like, should I be expecting taxidermy? Which is like an inside joke between them that Adam does taxidermy, even though he doesn't. Frankly, I would have like loved for that to have turned out to be true.
Tom starts it. He's like, yes. Oh, do you like his taxidermy collection? And I'm knowing what we know about Tom now, I'm just going to assume that he like stole that joke from someone and then killed them in order for like to have exclusive rights to that joke.
Roy Lockhart.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she shows up at Adam's house. Adam has just gotten back from a run. This is just another one of those instances where we know that they both like running, but there's never like an official bonding moment over it. And Tom like asks her all these questions and then like he doesn't invite her to the lab. So like Olive gets up to go and then Tom is like, Olive, I'll see you in the lab next year, won't I? And she's like, oh my God, like I get to go to the lab, which is very exciting at the time because we don't yet know how big a villain Tom is.
Yes.
Now, Rachel.
Next Fake Dating Wednesday is Fluchella, which if you have never been, I did not realize this was a thing like across big universities, but I guess like it's only feasible if you also have a medical center, which obviously Stanford does. Basically, it's a giant mass flu vaccination campaign where just like I guess everyone in the medical center like takes shifts throughout the day and there's just like a huge line, but it's insanely efficient. It's just like roll up like just vaccine after vaccine after vaccine. You just like come up, swipe your badge, get stuck in the arm, walk out, get a sticker. It's just like the most efficient thing you've ever seen. I fucking love it. But Olive is like, oh, do you want to go like to get your flu shot with me? And Adam outs himself as a fucking anti-vaxxer and or
no, he doesn't.
Needle-phobic, but I don't understand why. Like he's like, no, I don't want to. And she's like,
yeah, he's just afraid. He's afraid. And then she naturally starts roasting him for being a grown-ass man who's afraid of needles. And she's like, I don't like needles either, but like just go get your fucking flu vaccine. Like, would you rather have the flu? And he's like, I don't get sick. And I'm like,
the flu kills people.
Ali Hazelwood very rightfully roasts her character for not getting a vaccine because she seems to be very pro-vaccine, and I very much appreciate that. And so they go to Fluchella, and Olive is like, I'll hold your hand. And I'm like, yeah, you will. Woohoo.
The other thing I love about this is it's not only, I found out from this that not only are mass flu vaccination campaigns not unique, also naming them after music festivals is not unique. Fluchella, Flulapalooza, Flularoo, probably. Like Fluing man.
Oh my God, Fluing man. Flu man. What was the one that they made documentaries about on the island that scam?
I can't remember what that was called. Let me see.
That, but like put flu in the title, basically. So now Olive and Adam are texting, and Adam is like, my arm hurts from the vaccine, which like I don't want to fucking hear it. Listen to me, friends. For those of you,
are you gonna say the flu vaccine doesn't hurt that much?
No, I'm gonna say there's something that hurts more.
The flu vaccine, though, it's always like more painful than other shots. I'm always surprised.
Okay, listen to me. I will admit that after I get the flu vaccine, my arm is sore from anywhere from 1 to 2 days. I can understand that your arm is sore after you get any vaccine. Of course, you have just shoved a needle into muscle. Naturally, your body is going to be like, what the fuck is this? However, no vaccine will ever in my life compare to the pain of Gardasil. For those of you unaware, Gardasil is a vaccine that you get from like 12 to 14, like that age range. You get 3 different rounds of it. It's the HPV vaccine. It used to be just for ladies, but it is now for everyone. They now recommend it for everybody because everybody is susceptible to HPV. It originally was just for ladies because it is supposed to prevent cervical cancer. And obviously people who don't have cervixes are not susceptible to cervical cancer. But I got Gardasil, and man, your arm hurts for like a week after that. It's like you've been punched by Dwayne The Rock Johnson in the fucking arm. Like, it's horrible. And I understand the flu shots hurt, but I'm like, Adam, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear about your arm hurting because you probably never had to get Gardasil because that was before your time.
As long as we're one-upping each other on the vaccines, just cross your fingers that you never have to get a rabies vaccine. That's all I have to say. It is no longer 20 shots to the stomach, but it is still 2 huge ass needles in your like side of your thighs. Yeah.
No, thank you at all. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
On comes in and sees Olive texting Adam and is like, oh, you guys are in love. Like, you love him, like, obviously. And Olive freaks out because she's like, she has like a crisis because she's like, oh my God, like, I've caught feelings. Bad.
Mommy, stupid. She's like, I fell for it.
She's like, the classic trap.
Yeah.
Adam, meanwhile, like, senses the disturbance in the force and he's like, time to flip to the next play. Meanwhile, An is like, L is for the way you look at Adam.
No, that's too mature for An. An is like, Olive and Adam sitting in a tree. Kissing.
Joy to the world that Barney said.
Yeah.
Can someone just as a total tangent, for any, like, I would like to do a generalized poll of all of our listeners, like any of you who encountered some sort of I hate Barney song.
There's a Wikipedia article on Barney hate.
I know. I want to know how prevalent it was among our listeners. I want to know, like, whether it's we have quite a few, like 27% of our listeners are international listeners. So I would also like to discover whether this stretched like overseas. So if as a child, you on the playground sang any sort of song that involved hate against the TV show character Barney,
the purple dinosaur,
please let us know. Just general interest question. I would just like to know, like, how strong the child whisper network is.
Yeah. Yeah. So Olive has to discuss with Malcolm and like get advice, right? And so they're sitting.
She's like, I've caught feelings. Mayday, mayday, mayday.
And like Malcolm's like, oh, this is great. And she's like, no, it's terrible. It's terrible. Like, I'm in love with someone who like doesn't love me back or whatever. And of course, they're sitting in the public coffee shop. But right as she says that, who walks up? But Adam. And Malcolm's like sitting there like, stop it. But she doesn't realize in time. And so she turns around and she's like, shit. And so like Malcolm puts away. And Olive's like, how can I salvage that situation? And she's like, that person, to Adam, she's like, that person that I was just talking about, that was another person. That was not you person. That was another guy. And Adam's like, I know. But inside, he's like melting.
Dying inside. Yeah. He's like Anakin thrown into the lava at the end of the prequel trilogy. Like,
and he's like, I know it must be hard to see Jeremy dating On when you're in love with him. And she's like, she thinks I'm in love with Jeremy? Like, at this point, that's like so absurd. Yeah. Yeah. So this is the point
Yeah.
at which he leaves for a bit, right?
And I'm just like banging my head against the desk like the entire time that I'm listening to this. I'm like, God, oh my God. I know it's necessary because I know like we have a lot more book to do, but you absolute dummies, like you total dumbasses. Why can't you just tell each other you like each other?
Or like cover it in a way that isn't counterproductive. Like I don't even remember what the exact
I
quote
don't
was,
know.
but she could have been like, "Oh, I'm talking about my favorite fictional character, like my Star Wars fanfic." I don't know. Okay,
I
so
don't know.
Adam is leaving for like a week to go hang out with Tom and work on their grant at Harvard. So he's going to be gone. And Olive experiences the whole like, wow, like I don't even feel like going into the lab because there's not even the off chance of seeing him. You know, like when your like whole thing is like going to like see your crush.
Yeah. And Adam, when he's in Boston, he texts her a picture of like a pumpkin pie frappuccino. And he's like, think I can smuggle this on the plane? Ha ha ha. And I'm like,
Oh. Think I can smuggle you on the plane?
I'm just like witch cackle. Like he's totally gone for her.
Yeah. And so at this point, she bumps into Holden. I
Yeah.
forget
She has a
where.
bonding moment with Holden. Some Star Wars, this is a Star Wars thing I wrote down about Holden. So we have a little Easter egg here. Holden was on her committee like freshman year or something, like the first year.
Her like
Or are
initial
there
like
freshmen in grad programs? Is that, or is it just like year one?
first year.
Okay.
First
So
year.
Holden was on her committee a while back and he complimented her on her Star Wars t-shirt that she wore to one of her meetings and on the fact that she used the Imperial March in one of her presentations.
And we're gonna get this. Adam noticed this too. We get that later.
No, but he notices her
Right.
Star Trek thing.
Yeah.
He doesn't notice like
Okay.
Ali Hazelwood is not going to beat us over the nose with the fact that this is Kylo Ren. Like, so she's got to switch it to Star Trek. But Holden does bring in the Star Wars reference.
Holden is a normal professor who like she's like, yeah, he definitely did not read a single one of my like papers that I submitted.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's part of the course. That's
she's
expected.
like, but he's nice.
Yeah.
Whatever. Like
yeah.
And they're childhood BFFs. She finds out that this is not Adam's first fake dating experience, which further leads to me saying that he has the fake dating playbook like in a like scrapbook all figured out, because he and Holden were fake dates to prom because Holden is gay and his boyfriend like dumped him right before prom and he was like, Adam, I have no one to go with. And Adam is like, well, obviously we're gonna go together, dude, like you're my best bro. The logical choice, by the way, like unlike for example Harry and Ron in the fucking fourth book, we're like, oh no, we don't have any dates to the ball. And I'm like, you could just go together, you idiots. You could just go together.
Yeah.
No one would have said a thing. You could be friend dates.
Yeah. Except that I think in Holden Adams' case at the prom, like they're not just like going as friends. They like are tricking his like guy
they were
that
like
dumped
slow
him
dancing
to like make him jealous. Yeah.
Fabulous. Holden also tells Olive that Adam has been in love with someone for years, and Olive is like awash with guilt about the fact that she's like, oh my God, I'm keeping Adam from his true love, TM. And I'm like, hey, it's you idiot.
He's like, Holden is like, yeah, I'm so glad Adam finally worked up the courage to ask. He's been talking about this amazing girl for years. And Olive is like, could that be me? No, it couldn't be me. He would mention it. It must be some other random woman in the department that I'm keeping him from. Yeah.
Holden also warns Olive about Tom. He's like, watch out for Tom and also watch Adam's back around Tom. So he implies that Tom is shady, but we don't know exactly why. And Adam did at one point say that Holden doesn't like Tom, but Adam is like, whatever. Like, it's just like a weird personality quirk of his. Like, there's not because there's anything shady about my BFF Tom. Good news, though. Good news for Olive in her professional career, because right after this, she finds out that her paper got accepted to be on a panel presentation at this big conference that they've been talking about this whole time and we just haven't mentioned until now.
They really haven't been talking about it. It's just like, but whatever. It's
this big conference in Boston. Woohoo! And it's very exciting. And she obviously has a big freak out and she goes to Dr. Aishul Aslan. You can't say her name. Like, it's one of those names. You just got to say the full name. Aishul Aslan. Aslan, the lion.
Yeah.
And Dr. Eichel is like, dude, it'll be fine. Like, you're great. Like, this is a really big, like, cool thing. And then Malcolm and An come up and they also tell Olive the same thing, but they're also more understanding of her social anxiety. And then Olive is like, oh, yeah, we need to book our rooms for the conference because this whole time the plan has been
Every other year, they've all stayed together in one room.
for them to room together. And both of these assholes found other plans.
Well, yeah. Well, so she says that, and An is like ready to launch an explanation, but she immediately sees Malcolm being shifty because, as we reminded you before, Malcolm knows this whole time that the fake dating is fake. So he honestly has the least excuse because An is like, oh, well, Jeremy is getting a free room because of this like grant money he has. So I'll stay with him. And Malcolm got asked to room with these like other two randos. And for me, I'm like, okay, An, like, no, they definitely both should have checked with her first, like, especially if this was like a standing plan.
Yeah.
Oh, no. An is like, because we assumed you'd be staying with Adam, like your boyfriend, right?
And I'm like, why did you assume?
But at least An like has an explanation in her head. Like, yeah, you shouldn't have assumed it. For Malcolm, though, it's like, why you knew about this? Like, why would you agree to this? Also, he's only staying with two people, so seemingly there'd be room for her. Like, it just makes no sense. It's just so rude.
Like, presumably he's staying in a hotel with two queen beds. Like, why can't he and Olive share a bed?
Right. It just
doesn't make any sense. Yeah, why was it? And then Malcolm is like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, and he lists us all these reasons that he was distracted. And I'm like, yeah, but at some point in between the time about finding out that An has made these plans with Jeremy and like going with these other two people to room with them, like you had to text the other people or like tell them that you would room with them. Like, why the fuck wouldn't you talk to Olive first? Like, that's so shitty. Like, oh man, like what a betrayal.
They don't even know that Adam is going for sure. You know what I mean? Like, he could easily not be going.
They don't know. Like, also, like, I don't know, like, we just started dating. Maybe I don't want to stay in a hotel room, like, with my boyfriend. Like, maybe I'd rather stay with my friends and just, like, hang out
and
in
also,
the
like,
day with my boyfriend.
This isn't mentioned, but, like, his hotel room is being paid for by, like, someone, right? He's not paying for it. So, like, is that even allowed for him to, like, I mean, I'm sure
I
it
don't
is,
know.
But, like,
it's so...
these are all things that are completely skipped over.
They just, like, they don't... They're, like, if she didn't bring it up, would they have even told her? You know what I mean? The conference is in 2 weeks. Like, you didn't even think to tell her?
That's the other thing, though, is, like, why hasn't Olive thought about this before? Because then now she's, like, scrambling to try to find a room and everything's booked up. So, like,
but that's just because she's trying to find a single room.
Oh, true.
Like, that she can't afford anything else.
Right.
So that's why it's more difficult for her.
Yeah.
But it's just, like, I'm like, I don't... Like, why wouldn't you think that, like, Olive would bring this up? Be like, hey, guys, I am going to stay with Adam during... this conference.
Also, honestly, Jeremy should just what? Honestly, Jeremy should just have An and Olive and Malcolm stay in his room. It's the least he can do at this point.
Yes, for being an Irish bastard. You know you know what Jeremy is?
What?
Jeremy's a tout.
Oh yeah,
he's a tout.
Yeah.
He's going to be disappeared by the IRA.
I never was in the IRA. But if I were, I would have obeyed orders. Followed orders. Yeah. Well, maybe that's not. Yeah. Yeah. So Olive is like scrambling, and who's back from Boston? Adam.
And they meet at the coffee shop. And
well, they're not intentionally meeting because she's just like on her computer and he walks up and she's awkwardly like, oh, why don't you take a seat? And then is immediately like, oh, he probably has more important things to do. I shouldn't have made him sit with me. But he's like,
relatable. Very relatable.
Yeah.
But she is ding, 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 cat skill alert. Actually, it shouldn't be ding, ding, ding. It should be like meow, 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 cat skill alert. Adam folded himself into the chair like a big cat. Adam is also just in general like very cat-like. Like he's very much fully just has the personality of like a Maine Coon and specifically.
Look. Yeah. Yeah. Adam Driver has look of Maine Coon. Yeah. And he's like, what you doing? And she's like, well, I fucking hate my friends. And he's like, why? And she's like, well, they fucking ditched me.
And Adam once again is like, God, her friends suck so much, but like I can't tell her that because I'm not her real boyfriend.
And she's like, I'm trying to decide between a really shady like basement motel situation or like a place an hour away. And he's like, won't An notice that you're like an hour away? And she's like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. But like in retrospect, An definitely would not notice. An is like so up her butt and like does not care about Olive. throughout this experience.
No.
But Adam is like,
she cares on like very surface level. She's like very surface level friend. She is not,
which is like says something about like the level of other friends that Olive has had. Like,
yeah, Olive has trauma. Olive needs a lot of therapy so that she can heal and
the Canadian
realize that she deserves better.
Yeah. Not than Adam, than on. But so Adam's like, well, you could stay with me. And Olive is like, and this is how we know he is like practice. He has this down pat.
I know. He hears this. He hears that Olive doesn't have a safe place to stay. And he's like, oh, things are speeding up. He's like flipping through the fake dating playbook. He's like, shit. Like, we got to go to play 20. Like, oh, God. But he's also like, he hears this and he's like, here is my chance to milk this fake dating for all that it is worth. Like, woohoo. Like,
so he's like, he also throws in a like, he's like, oh, I'm worried about you walking in the city late at night. Biking on roads without bike lanes is bad enough. And he like,
he like
goes at it from that angle. Yeah. But also like in general, like, he's flipping the pages, but in general, this was very much like a slow burn in a way. Like in that it feels less contrived than fake dating in general, where they're like immediately tearing each other's clothes off. You know what I mean? At that point, it's like, there's no, the fake dating plays like a big role in this. It's not just like fake dating as like a label, but then they're immediately like fucking, you know what I mean?
And on that cheery note, we are ending part 1 of our 2-part series on The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I promise we went into recording this episode not at all intending to make it 2 parts, but we just had way too much fun with this book. It seriously is one of the best rom-coms of the year, and I hope that you can see like why it's so popular. But I know that you must have a lot of questions after listening to this episode, such as, will Malcolm and Anne ever stop being such shit friends? Will Olive successfully give her speech? Will you ever find out why Tom has such little dick energy? And possibly most importantly, will Adam and Olive ever bang? All of that is coming next week in part 2 of The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. See you then. Hey, Rachel, where can they find us?
Well, Allison, they can find us on Instagram at We Read It One Night, on Twitter at We Read It Podcast, on Facebook at We Read It One Night, and newly on TikTok at We Read It One Night. You can also shoot us an email at our Gmail, we read it one night @gmail.com.
Please also follow, rate, download, subscribe, review our podcast wherever you listen. And if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts and you mention a book that you would like us to do in the future, we will add it to our handy dandy spreadsheet. So spread those fingers for a spreadsheet and be a part of picking our future episodes for this podcast. Woohoo! All right.
Godspeed, comrade.
Godspeed, comrade.